top 5 returning players / coaches if you're Jed. Matthew.
I get to go first both times.
Yes.
Again.
Look at us.
Hey, man, it worked out good last time.
Save the best for first.
My list is fat boy heavy. So I'm just gonna
Fat boy heavy.
just gonna preface this
All
now.
right.
Mine is defensive heavy.
It's full of thick. Mine started really defensive heavy. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So then,
And not to ruin anything, but mine is literally all defense.
45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's gonna go. Holy cow.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. He gets better and better. Be the JPB. Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
Jed, you love that so much, don't you?
He does.
Can't start a show without it.
Absolutely loves it. As promised, we are here to talk about the top 5 returning players / coaches for 2024.
We are doing / coaches, huh?
I am.
I think Jed busted the can of worms wide open, man.
So we're
It makes sense, though, doesn't it?
Well, let me just say this. I'm not going to put him in my top 5 because I already had that just players. But Tony White is
obviously
probably
Tony White.
Tony White's probably the number 1 for me. Of returning that we didn't know for sure would be here.
I do have a coach, but Tony White's not it. But
Tony White's not
obviously
it. Wow.
he's a great pick.
My guess would be Terrence Knighton for you.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Let's not play that game because I'll just spoil it if you ever actually say
Exactly.
Well, I think we can all agree, and we've already talked about it a ton. Everybody's talked about it a ton. The fact that Tony White stayed, the fact that it sounds like
Thank you.
It sounds like he probably had the option to go to UCLA, and
He definitely got talked to.
and so did Rule about him.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
From what I understand.
You know, I kind of think that one of the reasons, even though it was his alma mater, that he didn't goes back to what Rule talked about when Tony White was a hot name for like places like San Diego State and even a Syracuse possibly.
I was about to say this exact same point. I guarantee it.
Was where he said, make sure where you go, the commitment to you also is the commitment off the field as far as like facilities and NIL and all those other places. And the thing is, and we talked about this in another show.
Teaser, we've got a special bonus episode. It's a nice short one that we specifically talk about.
UCLA.
What's UCLA got to offer?
Does not have any of that.
Yeah.
At least as far as like commitment to all of that stuff just yet. And I think as much as maybe Tony White did want to go home, what Rule said, I think, rang a bell with him to be like, yeah, I just can't do that because you don't have the commitment to it.
Yeah. No, and he mentioned it again. I don't know. I know that I mentioned it last week when we did our Ty Robinson cover. But we basically talked about the different interviews that Rule had been doing for about a week. He did an amazing interview with what's his name from College Game Day. It went on for like 40 minutes on their college football podcast on ESPN. And Rule talked at length about, the importance of what things are as far as the backing that you're going to get from your university, the backing you're going to get from your AD, the backing you're going to get from your fans and everything that go along with everything that supports a football team. And it was almost like he was almost poking a little bit of fun when he was asked about the fact that Tony White was coming back. About, it wasn't like he was poking fun, but more of a, I really think Tony White's going to get his opportunity and he's going to take the right one when it comes along. He drives that point home as if to say, UCLA is not a good place to go work right now.
No, it's why I wanted to have that conversation.
So look out for that bonus episode. Please do us a favor, like, subscribe, share. The subscribe button's right below. It's easy to hit, costs you nothing.
Do it, pussies, you won't.
Yeah, do it. We need to grow this channel. There's no reason we shouldn't be growing a little bit faster than we are, and we absolutely love doing this, love bringing you content, and that just makes it easier on us.
Bet you fucking won't.
So we're jumping in. Top 5 returning players / coaches if you're Jed. Matthew.
I get to go first both times.
Yes.
Again.
Look at us.
Hey, man, it worked out good last time.
Save the best for first.
You lost me. All right.
Oh, hold on. Is there anybody that just missed your top 5 cut?
Yeah, like 5 guys. They're not in the top 5, so we're not going to talk about them. Number 5.
I bet we do, but
Yeah.
No, I guarantee we do. This is kind of a rough list.
thing is, the guy that's on my number 6, I bet one of you guys has it. So.
My list is fat boy heavy. So I'm just going
Fat boy heavy.
to preface this
All
now.
right.
It's
Mine is defensive heavy.
It's full of thick. Mine started really defensive heavy. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So then
And not to ruin anything, but mine is literally all defense. But go ahead.
I should tell you something about the
Jesus.
coach you picked.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, my number 5, young kid, but he's coming back. You got some good playing time, though we didn't see much production out of him. Malachi Coleman. I have big, high hopes for him this year. I think he's going to have a better quarterback that can get him the ball. We're going to see him explode a little bit. He's my number 5, just made it in pick.
Better, more experienced wide receivers around him to
All of
maybe
that.
take the pressure off of him, things like that.
He's going to have such a better experience this year than he did last year.
I hope so.
I like it, man. We've done spots on his book. We do a lot of support.
You like Malachi Coleman being brought up? Shocker.
Oh yeah, he's not in my top 5 to be honest with you. But
Wow,
that's-
I'm honestly
that's
stunned by
that's only because we've got 2 incoming wide receivers that I think are going to be
That's
enormous
fine.
for us.
I just know how much you like him.
I
Just giving you
absolutely
shit.
love the kid. We've done a lot of stuff on social with him and his foundation that he has. But
And go get his book too, by the
yeah,
way.
go get his
Fly
book.
like guy.
He's going to be awesome. I really think he's going to be able to just do the developing and the learning that he was supposed to do last year, this year.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to rely on him as much because we went out and got 2 carbon copy older dudes that have produced more in college football than him.
Yep.
Who's your number 5, Jed?
Well, as far as my just miss, really quickly, and we don't have to go into him because I guess I'm just going to assume that you have him on your list. My just list number 6 is Ty Robinson, but my number 5 is going to be Tommy Hill. He really came on in the second half of the season last year. Coming into the year, he was kind of which position is he going to play? Is he going to play wide receiver? Is he going to play defensive back? Because he flip-flopped back and forth 2 years ago. And he ends up leading the team in interceptions with 4 interceptions.
4 interceptions is sad to be leading the team. But
it is, but
Yes and no. That's still a lot for a single season.
especially for the back half of the
Yeah.
season, it's more than like a guy like Travis Hunter. He had 3, so
fuck Colorado.
yes, but
He also sat out 5 games. But
Yeah, what a pussy.
still, I mean, if he's
Tommy Hill didn't start at cornerback in all of our games either. He's actually my number 4.
Okay.
on my list.
He's a little higher for
But also, with us losing the Quentin Newsom and Omar Browns in the secondary, we are going to need a guy like Tommy Hill with his experience to step up even more than what he already has and take those guys' places.
I feel like I'm working backwards here because I'm talking about my 4 before I mention my 5. But to just piggyback on that, I mean, he is the ninth or 8th rated Pro Football Focus. He's the 9th or 8th rated cornerback coming back in 2024
Yes.
for all of college football. Not just for the Big Ten, not just for Nebraska, for all of college football. That is humongous.
Mm-hmm.
And to think we almost moved him to running back or wide receiver,
Yeah.
whatever it was. I think he was getting a look at running back too.
Like I said, he was playing both positions 2 years ago.
He's a guy that I know Rule loves. He's a freak athlete. He's obviously got a nose for the ball. We were making jokes during games last year, especially the last couple of games. It's like, dude,
where's the ball? Give me the ball. You got the ball?
He
Give me
got
the ball.
lucky and blown coverages on bad balls a couple different times because he was just trying to go for an interception.
Yeah.
And if the ball had actually been delivered appropriately, he'd got burned for a touchdown on a couple of them.
And one of the reasons why Rule loves him so much isn't because of what he does during games. He's a fucking workhorse. And Rule brings it up all the time about what he does on the practice field and off the field for this team.
I want you guys to remember all of this when you find out where he is in my lineup.
So he's a little higher?
So here's my number 4. But my number 5 is actually Mekhi Bear. The linebacker spot, we talked about it in
Really
our,
good pick.
In our newcomers top 5. The linebacker spot is low. He's a guy that can play both inside and played some outside linebacker last year. He actually even moved up and played on the end spot a couple different times. He's a super versatile, really fits in a lot to their positionless player mold.
Yep.
They've got him listed at 230. I think he actually played a little bit closer to like 245 last year. So I don't know if they're trimming him down in the offseason or what, because the current roster has him listed at 230. But he's a dude that showed flashes last year, alongside of other freshmen that were out there and other newcomers that were out there. Because I think
Yes, he did.
he was a transfer in last year, wasn't he?
I don't remember.
Because I know they have him listed as a junior right now. I can't remember if he was a transfer in or if he was just a guy that literally we'd never heard of prior to last year.
Yeah. No,
But
he flashed last year.
He's
Big
one of those
time.
dudes that seemed to come out of nowhere, that everybody by the end of the season knew his name. And I'm so glad that he's got another full season. And the depth is going to allow him to be one of the more upper echelon, more on the field guys from the very beginning of the season.
He started to flash in the first half of the year. Nobody knew how to pronounce his last name, and then in the second half of the year,
Gaber, how do we get this G out there?
Is it a
no,
hard
guys,
G
it's just
or-
Bear. It's just Bear.
just forget the G.
And then it was like, is it Bayer or is it Bear? And it's like, I don't know.
Is he aspirin? Shut up.
Are you saying Pan or Pam?
But that's my number 5. Matt, who you got it for?
My number 4 was kind of a toss-up between two of the, chubbier kids on the team. But I'm going with Ty Robinson. I mean, we talked about him so much.
He said he was his
last
sixth.
year.
That's why I was kind of comfortable leaving him off, just because
You knew we were going to talk about him.
I knew he was going to be on somebody's list.
Amazing leader on the defense. Obviously, he's going to get a ton of playing time, and he's going to play in the NFL after this year.
Yeah.
So
apparently I'm just going to continue talking about the next one on my list before I talk about the next one on my list, because he's actually my number 3.
Yep.
I think I know who your number 2 is then.
Something that a lot
Probably
of people,
my number 3.
something that a lot of something that a lot of people forget about last season is he didn't start practicing. He didn't start working out. He didn't start doing all of the Matt Rule Nebraska football things until fucking August.
Well,
The dude was coming off major injury. He didn't get to do anything in spring ball. He didn't get to participate in the majority of what happened in the offseason. And by the end of the year, I mean, yes, Hutmaker had an amazing season last year. Don't get me wrong. I'm super excited about him coming back too. But Ty Robinson was the dude that was supposed to be the dude before he got hurt.
we said that
And-
in the preseason,
Yep.
where we were talking about Ty Robinson. It's like, is he going to be the guy that we expected him to be when he came in? And this is the year that he has to
I think
do
we
it.
actually all agreed that he was going to be the guy we expected, or that we were most excited to see and thought he was going to be the most impactful player
Yes.
last season.
No, we all were preseason. We were like, he needs to be the guy that we wanted him to be a couple of years ago when he first got recruited as a really big kid coming out of high school. I think
Yeah.
Arizona or something like that.
You know what? If he has the exact same season last year and the rest of the defense doesn't do what they did, he still had the season we expected him
Yeah.
to.
Well, the
Absolutely.
thing,
He had a
the thing
great
about it
year.
is, though,
100%.
the thing about it is, though, you're in a situation where it's kind of a Sue Jared Crick type situation here.
There's only so many
Because-
opportunities.
Well, no, actually,
to-
what I'm getting at is that, without Sue, Jared Crick doesn't really exist. Jared Crick probably would have been a decent college player. Probably would have maybe made it to the NFL.
Well, he
but
did.
Jared Crick
he
had
did
it.
make it in the NFL. He played for
I'm saying without Sue.
Oh, okay.
If Sue didn't exist, he wouldn't have been that guy.
No.
He would have never gotten the opportunities, because Sue was demanding all that attention. But you look at what happened last year with Ty Robinson. He got basically the first half of the season off because Hutmaker was making it impossible to double Ty Robinson.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, though,
It flipped.
offenses had to figure out, okay, which player are we going to double who
Yeah.
on?
Where's our tight end?
Because we can't
filling in
take
here?
both of these guys at the same time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you started seeing a lot more double tight end sets, and you started seeing a lot more of those jumbo packages when they had to get out there and hold them back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I'm super, super excited about that dude coming in.
My number
Come
4.
back.
My number 4 is his next door neighbor, Nash Hutmacher. I mean, it kind of piggybacks off everything that we said about Ty Robinson. I mean, with the first, specifically, I'm not trying to say that he had a bad second half of the season, but specifically what Hutmacher did in the first half of the season. And then his numbers came down in the second half, but it was because of what you just said, as far as they had to decide, are we going to double Ty Robinson or are we going to double Hutmacher? And either way, you're screwed. But having Hutmacher back, obviously also next to Ty Robinson, with a Terrence Knighton giving them another year of coaching, is just just gigantic. There's not really a whole lot more to say to piggyback off of the Ty Robinson stuff.
No, it's fucking huge.
Because they're kind of a combo.
Yeah. My number
They're
four,
very good individually, but
they're very good individually, but like I said,
together they're
Sue and Crick were a very special
Yes.
defensive tackle tandem in college football, and that's essentially what Ty Robinson and Nat Schottenmaker are.
like one of them individually. Where at least I'm not trying to say one of them individually is like a Sue, but as far as a combo together, they both Sue and Crick together, and Robinson and Hutmaker together are probably pretty close as far as just combos.
Yeah.
Because maybe both Robinson and Hutmaker might be a touch better than a Jared Crick, but if you put a Sue next to him, then it raises up a Jared Crick, stuff like that.
I'm 100% with you. My number 4 is Prince Will.
Oh, you're switching your number 4 now?
No, that was his number 3.
No, my number 3 was Ty Robinson.
Oh,
that was my number 4.
Okay.
His number 4 was
This is
my
getting
number 3.
confusing because
I know. We keep going back and forth. My number 4 is Prince Will.
Okay.
Stop texting. Prince Will.
your mama yelling.
Come on. It's Prince Will.
Your mom's a yelling.
There you go. I'm very, very excited to see what that dude does. If you're telling me that what he showed as a true freshman, combined with the name that him and his brothers are getting in college football in general, if you're telling me he didn't have the opportunity to go to wherever the fuck he wanted to in the transfer portal, you're wrong.
Yep.
And him staying here, him apparently getting at least his brothers a little bit of interest from his brother to come up here from Florida, Prince Lee, who wound up being one of the major gets for Ole Miss.
Yes.
And he will start for Ole Miss.
Oh God.
Don't get me wrong. That boy going to the NFL, so is Prince Will.
Yeah.
And the things we started to see from him that were super next level, very, very high end, heady football type plays. I'm so excited for what he's going to do with a full second season in Matt Rule's system with Tony White. God, it's just I'm getting goosebumps right now.
In the
Just
weight
thinking
room
about
with Corey Campbell.
oh god,
Second year. Yeah.
and putting just a little bit more weight on.
Yep.
Yeah, boy.
I agree.
So
And
y'all already know my number 3.
Well, and honestly, the thing is, real quickly with Prince Will, I could easily say Cam Lenhart in the same spot as Prince Will.
Exactly. And you know the thing about that is those dudes. And we've kind of already talked about this, but those dudes don't do the things that they've done. Yeah, there's some individual stuff, like I said, the head stuff, but they're not getting the opportunities on the field without a Hutmaker and a Ty Robinson doing the shit that they've been doing.
See, this is why I didn't want to talk about my didn't make the top 5 because we're talking about all of them anyway.
Lenhart was already on there, or Prince Will?
Yes.
Both of them.
Yes.
They're amazing and they belong on the list, but they're not here.
You're right. They do belong. I mean,
That's very fair.
But you could only pick 5. Again, make sure like, share, and subscribe, and also put your top 5 in the comment section.
Yeah, drop your top 5 down below. This is one of those that, I mean, what is there right now? There's 120 kids on the roster.
Yeah.
You can be going with whatever you want to.
Yeah.
You want to focus on the entire offensive side of the ball.
There are wrong answers. I'm just saying.
All right, man.
I will troll you. It will be a thing.
I will troll you. It will happen.
All right, so your number 3,
You already heard my 3.
Ty
It's Ty
Robinson.
Robinson.
and it equally well deserved. He belongs in the number 3
Absolutely.
spot. Most of these are interchangeable.
Yep.
For me, my number 3 is the big fatty on the other side of the ball, which is Bryce Benhart.
Okay.
He's going to lead the offensive line this year.
Wow.
BJ's finally off his back. He's lost a lot of weight. He's ready to go.
So, no, I agree with you that he's very important as far as coming back.
He's probably our most important offensive lineman.
I disagree with that. My number 2 guy, I'm putting the heart before the course. My number 2 guy is actually Ben Scott. Having a senior center with as much playing experience as Ben Scott has,
With a true freshman quarterback.
That is going to be so incredibly important.
You're not wrong.
So incredibly.
Neither of you are wrong. But
No.
Yeah.
And not to mention that Ben Scott was already on the O'Brien's, preseason list and all sorts of different stuff. I'm not saying anything against Benhart. He was one that just missed the cut for me on the returning 5. But that again speaks to the depth that we have on the offensive line. The only reason Ben Scott
and the quality returning.
and the quality. The only reason Ben Scott is my number 2 is because of the Raiola being a true freshman. and him being a super seasoned center.
At some point, we're going to get you to go in order.
Well, I've already given my number 3, so I needed a chance to talk on this round.
With how confusing these orders.
Yeah, no shit.
Maybe at the end we're gonna have to go through our order just to list off our orders again. But my number 3, I'm gonna go off with the players, and I'm gonna go to a coach. And similar to what we talked about it in our previous show with Stephon Thompson, the importance of the middle linebackers and the linebacker position as a whole. And I'm going to go with Rob Dvorak because the job that he has, it's kind of with what I said about the Glenn Thomas situation, the job that he has in the quarterback room situation as a whole. But the job that he has to get these guys ready, a John Bullock, a Javin Wright, potentially as our 2 starting linebackers, and then bringing up guys, and Stephon Thompson will be in that mix as well. But bringing up guys, Mikhail Baer, to be able to take the spot of Reimer and Heinrich, the job that Rob Dvorak has on him for the 2024 season is a very big job for this defense.
1,000%.
I agree with you 100%. It's going to be incredible, and I think he's up to the task, mostly because of what we saw from him last year.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to take anything away from the dudes that we lost, but those guys were good for a Scott Frost roster.
Mm-hmm.
They were good holdovers. They were some of the few good holdovers from that roster. They weren't world beaters. They're not going on to the NFL.
No.
They're not. I mean, that just is what it is. And what he got out of them, what he made Nick Henrich back into as a dude, like, yes, it's so horrendously sad that he got injured again and he decided to just retire from football.
Yep.
But what he made him into as a dude returning from double ACLs, that was incredible.
Yep.
That was incredible. So I'm with you 100%.
Miracle.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, who you got it to?
You sure you don't want to talk about your number 2?
I've already given my number 2.
I'm aware.
Ben Scott's at my number 2. Like I said, and I'll reiterate this. I truly think the biggest reason that he is so important this next upcoming season, the effect that he's going to be able to have on Dylan Raiola, especially since we're an offense that likes to huddle. We're an offense that likes to get together and have good communication. You saw it when it came to the practice squad people working with starters. Last year when we had to bring in our 3rd and 4th string quarterbacks, when you saw Purdy get on the field, Evans Jenkins was playing left guard in those games. And he ended up having to give the snap counts to Ben Scott. But Ben Scott's ability to sit in there and play with quarterbacks that he's not even played with before and just get signals called over from the right guard or the left guard. I mean, those are going to be huge things. His in-game experience and his abilities, not just as a blocker, it's going to be huge.
Yep. No, and again, you were right with Bryce Benhart. You are completely right with Ben Scott.
Well, for 2 very different reasons. I think Ben Hart is going to lead the line, and Ben Scott is going to lead your quarterback.
Especially if you're going to talk about the tackle position.
Yeah.
And you need a stud there. So, again, they both, we can say 12 different guys deserve
I got a lot of questions about the other side of that tackle side.
Yeah, but that's why they're not on the list.
But we could put 12 people on our top 5 list, but then it wouldn't be a top 5 list.
Yeah.
So,
fair enough.
Who's your number 2?
Tommy Hill. Tommy Hill, for everything you guys said earlier, he's a workhorse. He was a ball hawk last year. He could literally play wherever, and he finally ended up in a spot where I think he's going to do amazing this coming year. I also think he's going to be one of the biggest leaders on the defense this year.
You know, one of the other things we talked about, Rule, what Tommy Hill means to the program as a workhorse type guy. He almost kind of talked about him as a defensive back, almost joking like, who the fuck would put him in a different position? Like, Rule talks about him in such reverence as a defensive back, like, why would he play any other position? This is fucking stupid. What idiot, as a previous coach, would put him at any other position? Like, it's really funny when he brings up Tommy Hill. He loves Tommy Hill. So I
That's
agree.
another reason. If
And he was
Rule,
a kid that didn't get a lot of look before Rule got here.
yeah, if Rule is that hot on him, I'm going to be that hot on him too. I think he's going to be a stud on the defense next year, and he's going to be a leader, if not on the field, in the locker room.
I agree. That's why I had him on my list, and you did too.
Yeah,
We all
for
did.
sure.
He is on my number 2.
Yep.
We all know what BJ's was. Jed, what do you got?
My number 2 is, I think, we've brought up a bunch of defensive guys. Again, all of my list is defense. We brought up a bunch of guys that are leaders, and I think this guy is the ultimate leader on the entire defense, and that's Isaac Gifford.
Okay.
What's
Nothing.
the side? What?
No,
Did you think I was taking?
Isaac Gifford was actually one of my very last cut guys. I think he was probably my number 6.
Kind of with what you brought up, Ben Hart, like Isaac Gifford and Ben Hart announced at the same time in their little video that they were returning. He was one of the key guys that we needed to have back on the defense. I know we have a bunch of guys coming back on defense, but Isaac Gifford, I think, is one of the glues of that defense. He plays in a bunch of different positions on the field. I mean, he's the same position, but where he's at, kind of we talk about the amoeba defense.
The roaming safety.
Yes. He's a roaming guy that plays everywhere. He led the team in tackles last year. Like, he is just everywhere, and I believe a lot of people are leaders, but he's the heart of our defense.
I was just going to say this. I think that he was only my number 6 on this list, I think, 6 or 7. But he just missed the cut for me because of how many missed plays I think he had in serious moments last year for me. He doesn't seem to rise to the occasion in the critical moments.
Okay.
And he can get beat on the field. But if it was just for his on-field play, he wouldn't even be in my top 10. It's his off-field, like you said,
I think
the
he's
leadership
great on the field, but
I don't think he's bad on the field, but I'm saying he wouldn't be in my top 10.
I didn't mean it that
returners.
way. I didn't mean it that way.
I'm saying the leadership aspect, the heart and soul of the defense, the glue, those things, I think that is where his true value is, because he's a little bit undersized. He's not the fastest. He's not going to probably be an NFL guy.
I don't know.
I mean, he might get a look. But he's more of a practice squad guy. He's not
playing the rover safety position they needed and having 6.5 tackles for loss. I mean, like, he's always around the ball.
Yes.
Again, leading the team in tackles. Like,
He's also kind of one of those athletes some NFL teams like.
I think you're kind of underselling. I get what you're saying. I think you're kind of underselling his.
He's just trying to justify him at number 6.
No, I'm basically just saying there were big moments last year that stick out in my mind where he got beat bad, and it was because of him misreading something or him making a mistake on the field. And so those are things that stick out in my mind as to why he's not one of the biggest things coming back on the field for me. But
I get it.
100% on the leadership stuff.
Yeah,
100% on the heart and soul stuff.
Absolutely. And you already talked about your number 2.
I already said my number 2.
Do you want to just go to your number 1?
No,
you've been jumping ahead on all these anyway.
I thought I was going to get burned.
Go ahead.
No, Matt,
tell us your number 1.
Matt, I'm waiting on your number 1.
Okay.
I'm very curious because you had that big sigh when I was leading up to mine that I was taking your number 1. So I'm very curious on what your number 1 is going to be. But go ahead, Matt.
Well, since I can't put Nash Hutmacher's dad on here, it's just going to be Nash
If
Hutmacher.
you haven't seen that picture,
Oh
go out.
my God.
We shared it on our Facebook and our Twitter and on everything else. That dude, Nash Hutmacher, comes from large stock.
We didn't know that the polar bear was actually a polar bear cub.
Yeah, he was.
Because dad is a big boy.
Dad at Polar Bear is.
Nash is the polar bear. His dad is Grizzly Adams.
Jesus Christ.
Like,
he's
7 of them.
his arm in that picture is like the same size as Nash's chest.
All right. Everybody call him your dicks over his dad. Because for real,
The side of this table's getting a little heavy.
Nash is my number 1 for not only everything that he did last year, and I think he's going to do it again, but also everything he did this offseason. The going and wrestling and everything that can do for your form, your technique, your footwork, the work ethic that you see in wrestling, all that. And he's going to come back even better this coming year. I think he's going to be a fucking force to be reckoned with this coming season. Yeah. So he's far and away my number 1.
Is he also your number 1?
No, he was my number 4.
Oh, yeah. No, shit. I'm sorry.
So apparently I think he sucks. No,
Go ahead.
No, it was just, I couldn't, everything. Nash Hutmacher, I could easily put him at number 1.
If any high school kids watch this, wrestle in the off season because it'll put you light years ahead of everybody when you're playing football, hands down.
Yeah,
Nash Hutmacher, we keep saying his name wrong. It's Hutmacher.
I know. I'm sorry.
Even though it's spelled and should be pronounced as Mocker correctly.
I know.
It's Maker. That's how he likes it pronounced. That's the way we're going to pronounce it. I say it wrong
Why
all
don't
the
you
time.
Hut make me say it different?
I know. We know Mama Hutmaker follows this show, so I apologize for mispronouncing your last name. But my number one is defense, because that's what I've been doing.
Hold on. Before you get into yours.
Okay.
Hutmaker's my number one as well.
Okay.
Hutmaker is...
Then why'd you sigh? I already said Hutmaker earlier.
I told you
Because
there's
I
a lot
forgot.
of whiskey.
I forgot.
I told you there's a lot of whiskey in that cup.
We're on our third segment recording tonight, and I have had a couple of these guys. What I would like to say about Hutmaker, it's been a while since there's been a dude that made me feel as much like they were Nebraska football as Nash Hutmaker does.
Okay.
He's Nebraska football. He's a South Dakota kid.
The way you
but
started that guy,
he's just
really
as
creepy,
much.
But
He's just as much.
Yeah.
He's just as much a Nebraska boy as any of the other guys on the team, in my opinion.
can't.
He is
disagree with
basically a hometown kid who he wasn't a known guy prior to last year. And I think that he finally got the right coaching. He got the right belief behind him. He obviously got the right push in the weight room and everything else.
He was just like the Ty Robinson, where we talked about how in the preseason of last year, we said Ty Robinson needs to be the guy that we expected him to be when he was recruited.
Yeah.
Nash Hutmacher was the same way. Nash Hutmacher last year needed to be the guy that we expected, the polar bear, that we recruited,
Fuck was he?
Yeah.
Back in the day. And they both were. So, yes.
He's awesome. He lives and breathes everything Nebraska football, and the University of Nebraska, apparently. What he's doing with wrestling, like Matt said, and all the positive physical things that wrestling brings to it, that's cool. But the fact that he's willing to just go the extra mile, do the extra stuff, and keep himself in tip-top, crazy good shape for the entire offseason when a lot of kids just want to go have a little bit of fun and hang out. He's old enough now to drink some beers.
You know he's going to go put that weight back on.
Well, yeah, he's going to put some of it back on. But right now, he's at such a lean and good weight for himself to be wrestling the way that he is and absolutely dominating, by the way. It's hard to not see him being the same level of impact that he was this past year, if not even more. And coupled with what we already talked about with Ty Robinson and his abilities right next to each other, man, we're going to be looking at a lot of national headline type situations where this defensive line specifically is going to be getting talked about.
A lot of people like to do the whole, if you have a two-headed monster at running back, the thunder and lightning. I mean, that's
kind of what they are.
It's what it is on the defensive line for
Just
us.
a whole lot of thunder.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of thunder.
You got the polar bear and the brown bear up there.
A lot of thunder and earthquakes. And,
Yeah. It's terraforming going on at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
yeah. My number one is Jamari Butler.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's kind of I don't want to say unknown, but very subdued type guy where he didn't play a ton of snaps. He played like half of the snaps that most of the starters did. He played just under 400 snaps. A lot of the other guys were at like 700-ish. And he led the team in tackles for loss. He led the team in sacks, 8.5 and 5.5. And for reference purposes, he was just under 400 snaps for last season. Garrett Nelson, 2 years ago, very good player for Nebraska, same position and everything else. He had 9 tackles for loss, a half a tackle loss more than Jamari Butler had, and the same number of sacks in over 400 more, or over 300, snaps than Jamari Butler had. So, for comparison as far as productivity, what Jamari Butler was able to do, and we talked about it all season as far as how the rotation of guys that they brought in, and we brought it up with Reimer, where he had a lot less tackles than we expected going in because he didn't play as many snaps because of the rotation. If you get a guy like Jamari Butler and the production that he was able to have in 380 something snaps that he had, and add 300 plus snaps to him if he's playing, on a down by down basis, already having 8.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, the sky's the fucking limit for this guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for somebody like him returning to be able to play with, you brought up Prince Will, and then we brought up Cam Lenhart to combo that. in this defense in year 2, Jamari Butler's my number 1.
He made a lot of the moves last year coming off the edge that are some of the things that I pointed to that are head things that Prince Will did.
Yeah.
The only reason I put Prince Will on here and didn't put a guy like Jamari Butler on here, and like you said, Prince Will and Cam Lenhart could have been interchangeable.
Absolutely.
In fact, they pretty much are both in that spot.
Yeah.
But the only reason that a Prince Will made my list and a Jamari Butler didn't is because we got Prince Will for 4 more years.
No, I get it.
Probably only 2 more years, but
I mean, we'll find out.
An early ship off to the NFL.
But realistically, if I asked you before this, who led the team in tackles for loss and or sacks?
Wouldn't have known that. Wouldn't have guessed that.
That's what I'm saying. You get a guy like Jamari Butler, who's kind of an unknown guy, and put up the numbers that he did.
It's not even that he's that quiet.
With the limited playing time that he had.
The rest of the defense is so loud.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's why I got him at number 1, mainly because of the production that he had with the limited playing time that he got.
So we've talked about our top 5 returning. We've talked about our top 5 newcomers. What do you guys? How would you guys rank, from an important standpoint, the top 5 coaches or analysts headed into 2024?
I mean, I had 2 coaches on my list.
You did have them on
so
that list.
Those 2, honestly,
would you rank them in the top 5 though for most important coming back?
No, I literally.
Let's take Rule out of it.
Oh yeah, I agree. Honest to God, and Tony White, we can put him on a pedestal and all that stuff. I seriously just spitballing here with a top 5 as far as coaches. I literally would have Glenn Thomas and Rob Dvorak 1 and 2.
Wow. Okay.
I would, because again, I think that the position that those guys coach, whether it's quarterbacks with Glenn Thomas and the guys that he has with 2 true freshmen and a quarterback that the majority of the fan base wants to be good, but he just wasn't last year, and we need him to be at least serviceable next year. Glenn Thomas has a huge job ahead of him. And again, Rob Dvorak with the guys that he lost and the guys that he needs to coach up to be better to be able to take those spots. Those 2 guys, Dvorak and Thomas, have the biggest job on the coaching staff, in my opinion. Another guy I would put really high up there is Garrett McGuire, because bringing in 2 experienced wide receivers, coaching up again a Malachi Coleman, a Jalen Lloyd, bring off the injured list, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, stuff like that. We need the wide receivers to step up with the quarterback. Obviously, E.J. Barthel, I would put him probably on my top 5. With the running back situation, he has no ability to affect who's going to stay healthy or not. But again, we need running backs to stay healthy. And so,
yeah.
Honestly, if I was ranking him out, Garrett McGuire would actually be my number 1.
Okay.
Garrett McGuire would be my number 1 simply because of what he did in the offseason, plus what he's going to have to do in the in-season, with the additions of those guys that are only going to help a true freshman wide receiver, like you just said, or quarterback, like you just said,
yeah.
Dylan Raiola. I think that Glenn Thomas is important. I think he's probably would be like number 5 or number 4 on my list. You got Garrett McGuire. I have E.J. Barthel at number 2, just simply because of the rooms that could and should take a step forward on offense this year, from a holding onto the ball perspective, from a hopefully a health perspective. That should be a major part of this offense that's going to make life again easier on a true freshman quarterback.
Well, and I'm sorry, real quickly, I had Dante Dowdell on my newcomer list, and you guys had him close. Having E.J. Barthel coach him, because granted, he's a newcomer, but he doesn't have a whole lot of actual experience, playing experience.
Very little.
What E.J. Barthel can do to somebody like that is going to be really big as well.
Absolutely. And I had Ed Foley on like number 4 for me, just simply because I think that our special teams took a step back. Like of all the units on our
take a step back from the previous year?
From the previous year, it did, especially our kicking game, both punting and kicking.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying
Tristan Alvano's
it's been really
gotta
bad
get
for a
coached
long
up.
time.
Tristan Alvano's got to get coached up.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we have an answer coming in as a true freshman at punter.
I think Alvano just needs to call Jed, and he can talk him through some of the analytics
Well,
around.
he's seen the documentaries.
Yeah.
He knows all about it.
You think you're going to get away?
But
You
But-
gonna get away today?
But my number
No.
three, on this list is still going to be Donovan Raiola.
I would probably put him at 5 of the coaches. That
I'm factoring in the offseason too, and you can't look away from the fact that without him, I really don't think we land Dylan Raiola. I don't think that communication and that family
I don't think
love
we're
stays
even
there.
in his.
I think we're still in the atmosphere just because of.
I don't think
Dad.
it's a 0 because
because of Dad
but-
and Dad's true love. Like I've watched a couple interviews since him now being on campus and those things. Dominic loves the state of Nebraska. He loves the University of Nebraska like way more than he let on prior to this.
I think one of the big things is like Rule can say all he wants to, and I'm not trying to say that I don't believe him. That when a player commits to a school, they back off and they don't contact them to try to come back.
Rule backed off. Ain't no way in hell. Ain't no way in hell
That's
that
what I'm
Uncle
getting at.
backed off.
That's what I'm getting at. Like, okay, the uncle could call and be like, "Hey, how's life?"
I think
You're
it was
good?
probably
Like,
every day.
Yeah, but
hey, you still going to
the uncle's
program?
still sitting across the table from you at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
with a Nebraska shirt on and like,
And Dad's a Nebraska shirt.
yeah, I mean,
Uncle's a Wisconsin alum at Nebraska.
Taking your
Dad's
Thanksgiving turkey. Oh, you're going to Georgia? Give me that.
yeah,
Give me that
so
turkey
it's
leg.
kind of
and I'm not trying to downplay what Donovan's done for us on the offensive line because I think it's a tremendous coincidence that Donovan also coaches O-line the way that Matt Rule coached O-line when he was coaching the NFL for
which
the
is
Giants.
why he kept him.
Which is
He said it multiple
the
times.
majority of the reason why he kept him, I think. I think you still keep him, even if that's not a very happy coincidence.
You don't keep him for one player.
No, I agree.
Maybe not.
Nope.
But that's why I would have him number 3 on my list. Matt, do you have a list?
You guys are ignoring the obvious ones.
I'm leaving Tony White.
Matt Rule is
off
number
the list.
1.
Yeah.
Tony White is number 2.
Yeah,
I honestly would put Glenn Thomas at number 3.
I don't want to slight Evan Cooper either. Not just
Rob
because of
Dvorak at number 4.
Here's my
And then
thing.
Raiola at number 5.
I think Evan Cooper is by far and away the most important coach we have on staff in the offseason.
yes. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was just getting
From a
getting
talent
at.
assessment and recruitment standpoint, that dude at some point will be running probably a front office, like he'll be GM of a football team.
You know,
in the NFL.
he kind of reminds me of, and God, for the fact that I'm going to bring up an NBA reference is like, what the fuck?
Oh,
is
I thought you were going
happening right
MLB here.
now? No, is like my Eric Spoelstra type
Spolstra
guy,
type, yeah.
where he's the video room guy, you know, that worked his way up to now being a head coach. Like that's almost what an Evan Cooper type is.
I agree with you in some sense. He reminds me more of a baseball reference, a Moneyball,
I get that.
a Theo Epstein type, where
Yep.
this dude is turning over every rock and finding guys, turn them into something that, from a football standpoint, they don't look like much. But he's taking these crazy athletes and he's going and finding them, and they're just coaching them up. And that's why I think
Evan Cooper goes to a basketball game and
that's the thing. He'd rather go see him play basketball than see him play football.
Jeremiah Charles and Isaiah Smith Flores on the same basketball team down in Texas that Wager coached, and he's looking at these kids playing basketball, and he looks over, and Matt Rule looks over at him. He goes, "Yeah, I got this," and now they're at Nebraska. Like, yeah,
If I'm doing an off-season one, he's number 1 for sure. I think Corey Campbell's probably number 2.
yeah.
Corey Campbell, what he's doing with our weight training program is something that a lot of people probably don't understand and don't know. Our weight training program went to absolute hell in a handbasket, trash, dog shit, box of donuts under Mike Riley, and didn't get any better under Scott Frost.
Nope.
Well, it couldn't get much worse.
I think
They just became the white crumbly donuts.
Oh, powdered
Powdered
sugar
donuts. They became powdered
Yeah.
sugar donuts.
Got
I
it.
Scott Frost.
I think the
Is that a cocaine reference, Matthew?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. What's cocaine?
I think the big
Ask Scott Frost.
I think the big thing about the last 5 minutes of this coaching conversation is how good is our coaching staff?
Realistically,
Realistically,
First of all, it's easy to sit back and say that as Nebraska fans who are in it, who are
You're not wrong.
really jumping into stuff and getting hyped up and all these things.
but truthfully,
But
if
saying
you look
that,
at
it really does feel like one of those, in 5 years, we're going to be watching or maybe 10 years, we're going to be watching Super Bowls or watching national championships where it's like, hey, these guys were on the same coaching staff together back at Nebraska, and they're showing the team photo, and he's here, and he's
the McVay,
here.
Shanahan, LaFleur,
the coaching tree.
all of these guys that were on the same coaching staff with the Redskins, Commanders, back
they're going to be the Redskins again soon.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what it could very possibly be with
on Jay Gruden's staff of all the fucking terrible coaches. He had that collection of assistants and couldn't do shit with it.
Kind of like OKC when they had Durant and Harden and Westbrook on the same team.
But the potential of what this coaching staff could possibly be, I think can't be undersold, and I that's one of the many reasons, Matt Rule aside, that makes people believe that this program is on the right track.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. This has been a fun conversation. Again, like, subscribe, share, follow.
Give us your top 5.
Tweet us out. Give us your top 5. We want to know who you think is the most important that's coming back. We also want to know who do you think is the most important from a coaching perspective.
Yep. Fucking do it.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.